and whatever I see is smiling at me. Love is who I am. Hello there, beloved lovers of life and all you Ascension pioneers out there. So welcome to this video together with me today. I wish to go even deeper into the topic of the mission of the sacred lover, of being a divine lover, and what does it mean. There's so many things I'm being guided to address in this video. As you know, I relate to many people all around the world. I constantly attune to the cosmic beloved, and I bring through what spirit shows me it's so important for the now. If you watch my latest Ascension update, I've talked a lot about the releasing of the record memory and a lot of the distortions that came through the illusions of that which we say love, but it truly isn't that true love. So today I was on this beautiful run, and spirit reminded me that the word illusion and illumination both have the same chord, which is to illuminate. So through that illusion, we're actually growing in more and more of that transcendental awareness of ourselves. And then we are here as lovers of life, asked to express that. The divine lovers of life, it's those of us who have not just been in a way mastering ourselves through knowledge, and I'm going to talk about the limitation of knowledge in this video today, but we've been actually moving so much to the core of relating with one another, because on this path of ascension you cannot always see what lies there somehow hidden, deep within you. And I was reading to you from the Sanat Kumara, the Training of the Planetary Logos book, this example when he thought he's already ascended, but he still had aspects of him that were there and he needed to lift up, and that was the main point and the deepening of oneness experience that came through the Ascension update for the month of June. But what is so important now is how do we live that in our corresponding relationships, because so many times we believe it's love, but it's an illusion of love. But it's okay, because the illusion is the pathway to illumination, because they have the same core. Just like when we talk about the Illuminati, there's illumination there too. At the very deepest bottom of the self, at the core, there's always illumination. It's just that we are like wrapping ourselves up to become these divine gifts as we enter the realms of true love. So divine lovers, we're here to create a light infusion for ourselves, for everyone. And that means embodying the type of love that is fully free. The love that is free from all expectation, attachment, thinking you are right, someone is wrong, thinking it has to be a certain way. And I've recently shared this beautiful post about letting go, because so many people are still persisting in these toxic relationships and ideas of relationships, and even ideas of relating to one another, because they're not willing to let go. They're not willing to let go. A lot of times that comes from the frustration of what will happen once we do. How will the other person respond? I've recently talked to someone who has a very challenging life situation, and as I was tuning into what they shared with me, I realized that no matter what we perceive as our story, we're always the one keeping it going. We're the enabler. So as long as we still have that position within us, and these opposing polarities, and even right, wrong, the other person is engaging in toxic behavior, they must be wrong. So we must be right? That's the basic assumption that we all make. Well, we still don't understand the truth of pure love, that seeing even in the illusions of others and through them keeps us in that state of pure compassion. So as I've talked to that individual, I share with them that, these situations, when we say, well, that's my story, it's just how it is, are always going to remain the same until we are going to break through that core, through the core of divine love itself, because it's love that integrates. You can have all the knowledge in the world, but every master of the self had to go through stages to apply that, to see that maybe you're not that so mastered in a certain area, and that's okay. Because remember, in the truth of creation, we are a divine trinity. A lot of people I meet, especially in the New Age, they're all so proud to be a master. I know this, I know that, I've acquired this knowledge. The master self is the essence of our divine masculine self, the truth, the alignment, that divine integrity, that discernment. And we all have that aspect, but we're not just that. So I see people confusing themselves and living that state of illusion because they're seeing themselves only as a master, and they so badly want to be seen as the master within the core that they forget other aspects that they are. So we're also the heart of divine lover, the divine mother, and then we are the divine child, the beautiful child that says, I don't know anything, I'm here to birth life constantly through the union of two main principles, which creates the divine trinity, sacred feminine, masculine, and the divine child. So as long as we still live those distortions, and I see the ego, which is not just like many people perceive as we either have an ego or we don't, that again is an illusion. It's not so black and white. We have layers and layers that we have to penetrate through. You know, there's layers of stages of spirit initiations that we're undergoing, and it has to be applied through the self. It's not just done through reason or thinking, oh, that has to be logical, right? Like, if I'm right, someone else is wrong, or vice versa. It can only be applied through the sacred principle of the divine trinity. And I've explained to you before that the holy tantrikas, that means that you have embodied all these three in direct correspondence, in oneness, in unity. And you're not associating it with yourself as I'm a master, or I'm just a lover, or I'm just a child. You are a perfect trinity in this balanced integration, and that's true soul union. So I don't relate to myself as a master at all. I know I have this higher self, masculine self with me that's always with me as the master self, and I bring it through my light infusion. But the aspect of me that I create through the fusion with the sacred feminine is the divine child. And I always tell you the same basic principle, that we are here ascending our human self. We're ascending the body. We're ascending our divine child, the birth. And all the knowledge can still keep you in dogma. And there will be people who are saying, well, religion is dogma. Well, yes, perhaps. But even Gnostic teachings can be dogmatic if your approach to them is like, this is how it is. It's the only truth. And you're not allowing for other aspects of creation to simply unfold themselves in a perfect way that's righteous for them in the moment. So when you are this neutral bystander, completely benevolent, not judging or relating or assuming anything about any other experience unless it's integration through yourself. And that means that every relationship you've ever had, it was for your spiritual advancement and growth. But what I do experience is that people don't usually want to see it like that. You fall in love, you fall into basic illusion, the trapping of the mind that says, well, I'm in love with this person, they're so like this, right? So when they act differently than what you've expected them to because you've seen what you wanted to see, you become a little bit obsessed with the idea of why is things not the way I thought it would be, or if I'm in love with them, why are they not in love with me? Remember that one-sided love is never truly true love. True love is only when two people equally meet in that shared space. And a lot of times people want that, but they're not willing to go to the distance of that meeting halfway, which means that even if we disagree on some things, or even if we're at different levels of perceiving something, or our knowledge might vary, we are totally going to accept ourselves to be who we are, what we are in this moment, and not in any way try to penetrate each other unless that tantric penetration happens through the mutual energy exchange for the benefit of both in an equal polarity, which means it happens naturally. You're not forcing it. When we try to force love and want to make love happen, it's not love. Again, it's ego. And remember, it's not like, oh, it's bad to have ego, therefore I either have it or I don't. That's a stopping point for many evolving souls, that the moment you think, oh, I don't have that, or I'm already a master, you stop growing. And I remember years back when I started this in 2011, I read that in the Sacred Teachings from the Syrians and Patricia Quarry's books. And when I read that sentence, that the moment you think, well, I have it all figured out, your growth stops. And that's what keeps a lot of souls in illusion. And even that is a part of the growth, because illusion does also eventually lead us into illumination. But we can be illumined right here and now when we get to the core of what does it mean to be a divine lover. I'm going to further out on this as I go deeper, but I want to say first that recently I've received this very important message that the soul only needs knowledge on the level that when you're still remembering yourself, who you are, how everything in the universe functions, what are the creation principles. And me as the creation pillar, I help souls to remember that, to activate that core memory. That memory, which is not record memory, which is all past, parallel, all these experiences, but that core, who we are in our creation principle, at our core of the creation self. So when you remember that, you're not even gonna, it's in a way you won't relate to knowledge the way you used to. Knowledge will become something, you know, I recently read in this Eternal Tarot book that tarot is an inner world. It's not even a pack of cards or a system, guidance system that also used to be altered so much, you know, altered through many different stages of our human evolution. But that it's actually an inner planes, inner world. And I've always said that the same thing. That's an inner accessing of these sacred laws and principles of creation. But once you master them, you don't need that. You don't need a physical tool. You don't need a physical deck of cards. You are eternally connected with that link. But the main misconception with the majority of people is they think they're already there when they're not. Because like in this book, right, when he thought he has nothing else to release, because he already said, I ascended, I did this and that, and his master guide told him, well, you're always doing that because you're always expanding to greater depths, and with that you're releasing aspects that are no longer fitting into that bigger, wider, expanded perception. So I often perceive in my own experience that because my love is so free, it's simply as a vessel. It's a vessel of expression, and I don't have a particular means to say this is who I love and that's how I love. It's just the way I love is free. And I have this example recently with my neighbor, right? I saw he doesn't own a nice pair of shoes, and he's this friend of mine, and he says, well, I always pick up the shoes from the trash because people throw them. And I'm like, what? And he walks so much, you know, and I thought I have to buy him new shoes. It was just pure guidance. And he got so low contracted because, you know, people usually think something will come with expectancy, you know, like you give me something, I have to give you something back. And I said, no. And I said, trust me. My view of abundance is that I'm not my money. It's not even my money. It's not your money. It's abundance. It's universal. It's from spirit. It's not mine. So how can I contain it? I cannot. And if something comes as guidance, I have to do it because the force, the life force is guiding me and it's pulling me. And I bought him the shoes, and he was like, oh, I have to give you this bag. And he gave me this book, right, about yoga. And I looked at him and said, but you don't have to give it back. You know, thank you, but you don't have to. Because people have a hard time accepting that something can be so free and unconditional. They think, why would someone buy me something? Does that mean something? Do they have something like an agenda behind it? You know, there must be not good people in the world because obviously this means something. Well, people like me, we simply love, and our love is unfiltered. It's unbiased. It goes where it needs to go in the moment. You know, I love someone now. Next moment, I need to offer love to someone else because spirit acts through me, and I'm a vessel. And that means that I don't get to choose who I love because it's not personal. That love is transpersonal. It's not about who. It's just you're a container, and that is ongoing. And people think, well, you love me because you bought me the shoes. Yeah, I love you, but I also love this and this and that and that and that, and I love all of life. I love all life forms. I love all creation so much. But as in giving, as what I'm sharing, it will be non-controlled by my personality because it's transcended into this greater form of giving, sharing, love. That means giving and receiving. That's true sharing of love. So with the idea here that I was receiving as a guidance is that a lot of us, when you complete the soul integration process, you have to step away from the knowledge. Not like you don't keep it. It's like within you, you become the embodiment of knowledge, but you don't need it to contain you. You don't need it to limit you. You don't need it to argument or debate anyone, you know. The people that I have as my direct family, that I call my little soul companions, we never talk about anything spiritual or this is that we don't talk about knowledge. We simply exchange the infusion of love. This is what light beings do. And I've met up with so many people who say, but this is what I know and I know it, and they're trying to hold so tightly to it because if they don't have that, who are they? This is the pathway that leads you into knowing of yourself that's beyond all this knowledge. That's the mission of a divine lover, is through divine love you integrate beyond what you think that you are. And you will witness yourself as something so majestic and grandiose that you will see your love is not just for your personal physical partner if you have one. Even in illumined unions, when the two are exact counterparts of each other and they create for the greater whole, that's their purpose, is create for the greater whole. It's not them as in, wow, we're so good with each other, blah, blah. That's still ego. They're simply vessels. But instead of being one vessel, they've united their vessels to create something even greater with the synergy and fusion of their polarities, becoming something so vast to share itself in creation. So love in its purest form is that which integrates. With only knowledge you can never integrate. And I see a lot of people who are still confused because knowledge can only get you so far. And this same example was in this book of tarot, when this being who was so mastered, right, in their astral projections or whatever, and he asked spirit, when he saw the vision of Spirit as this holy dove, and he said, Spirit, how am I doing? Am I doing well? And Spirit said, no, you're not doing so well because of this and this and that. And they were surprised, but they either had this chance of following through that guidance or not. But there's also something else here that I wish to expose, because today when I was running, I had this idea how many people say, well, Spirit told me that that person is an ego. Well, Spirit told me that that person is in misconception. Well, Spirit told me that person is not right. That's not Spirit. Trust me, beloved one. Spirit never ever talks that way. Spirit never judges or puts a label onto any human. It's humans who do that. It's the human ego. Your ego tells you that. It's the thoughts you think. And the way Spirit speaks is through your inner integration, through inner alchemy and inner initiation of the soul. So when you have a relationship and something's reflected back to you, and you might be eager to do like, oh, they're doing this and it's about them, and oh, it's okay, I forgive them, or this and that, but it's never even about them. And if you want to go deeper into this, because you are here to master yourself as the cosmic beloved, which cannot happen this way with these external projections. I have a beautiful mastery course I developed through these years, which is called the Cosmic Beloved. It's on my beloved page. All the links are down below. And it helps you to bring every aspect of every relationship you're ever living back into the self. Like I explained in my Ascension update for the month of June, through the example of, people who are still doing toxic things, and how you can integrate even that, even the toxic elements, everything, it's like, instead of pushing towards the agenda you have or the vision you have for others or what you want to happen, you allow Spirit to bring perfection through you, because there's so many people who are claiming to be masters, but they're not acting as masters, because the master level is everything is already perfect. And that's how a master lives. You quietly, humbly withdraw yourself always to deeper and deeper integrations within yourself. And I recently had this example when someone so much fell into my energy that they almost like wanted to force a certain outcome, and I couldn't do that. And there was something that didn't resonate with me, because they made an assumption about, something that's really sacred to me, and it's my knowledge. And I had never any idea that, I always just share my knowledge. I don't tell anyone you should think the same way. That's just supposed to be your knowledge. I simply share with them that that's not in resonance, because they made an assumption, because they started their sentence saying, yeah, you don't know this because you haven't had this and that experience in your life. And I was laughing, because I was thinking, who are you to know what experiences I had? You don't know. And as divine children, that aspect of the Trinity, we are the ones who don't know. And it's okay to embrace that aspect, and that's how we become the lovers. Is when the fusion of masculine and feminine, the sacred polarities meets, creates this divine child that is the birthing of the immaculate conception. It's not the egoic, it's not your ego child. It's the transparent, translucent, crystalline child within you. And there's a lot of us here as crystal children who carry that purity, who've come here to bring that back. But all these distortions and confusions and people agendas, and this is supposed to be that way or this way, and then the person wrote to me, they said, well, I forgive you. And I'm like, for what? I simply expressed myself in an authentic way. That did not resonate, wasn't in resonance with me. What's there to be forgiven? Forgive yourself. We have to start with this forgiveness of the self, how we think we should react or we should be, or what the relationship's supposed to bring to us. And I always am reminded that relationships at their core, for the majority of us, are for spiritual growth. And only when your spiritual growth supersedes that level of personal experience and me, my, this is the way it should be, agenda, then you can start experiencing yourself in a transpersonal level, and then you will be summoned by Spirit to serve, like many of us here as volunteer souls were called here. We were summoned here by Spirit, and we were sent here through the self. It wasn't forced upon us. A lot of people still think, well, someone forced me to come through this high council. Well, you are a part of the council, so you are self-generated. You have come here on your own agenda, which is of the higher light serving the divine plan. But you see, we can't make love happen. We can't make friendship happen. If love is true, it will be met on both ends. And when I feel people starting to do that and they want to force their agenda upon me, I cannot flow with them, because what this means is that they're trying to push me into their view. And that's not true union. Union is my view, your view. How can we meet? Without those entanglements and dramas, because when we want to push, We create so much resistance and so much drama, and that's egoic. And whenever you will find yourself describing another by saying, this is how you are, blah, 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 and this is how I perceive you, you know, people quickly jump to conclusions, and I've noticed that a lot, is if you read your sentences, if you hear yourself, you know, if people would start recording themselves in these devices, we'd hear what we're saying. And a lot of times that comes from that wounded child that wasn't loved properly, but it's never too late. And a lot of people are coming from the aspect of knowledge, like, okay, you know this, but I know that. Who cares? Truly, who cares? Love and union and true companionship is not about, I know this, you know that. Well, let's try to bring our knowledge together somehow. Well, we're probably, the majority of us function on different levels of awareness. We've been different places. We had different experiences. Together, we're part of that whole awareness. But we can't like fit this into that because they're just different angles of creation. And that's why we're here, to be the perfection of that. And I get very like this feeling when people want to say, well, this is my truth, and you know, you should also see my angle. Perhaps not. So what? Can you still love me even if I don't maybe want to see your angle, but I still love you for who you are, for the way you bring light into this world? That's what true love is about. I don't love you for your knowledge, whoever you are. You know, we have, a lot of us, this knowledge because we hold it to help others to come into the knowledge of the self-awareness of who they are. But we don't live for that knowledge. We live for love. We live for being the divine lovers. And that's why I'm calling this video the mission of the divine lover. So whenever you find yourself describing someone else, how they are, the way you think they feel about you, probably they don't even feel the way you think they feel about you, because that's all in the mind. That's an assumption. When you think that way, bring that back to you, as in, what am I saying to myself this way? What does my wounded little child still have as an expression? And a lot of people will say, I don't have that because that doesn't happen to me. I'm already so whole and perfect. Well, congratulations to you on that one, because you're clearly missing the point. And just like Sanat, and he was so developed, he was so evolved, and he still had to go through this layer per layer, time and time again. And that's what makes you a true master, to bring every aspect back to you, instead of creating this infatuation and the idea of love into true love, into true companionship, into true liberation of the soul, so we can be pure and free love in spirits. Because I'm a completely free spirit, and whenever people had an idea of me and a vision they want to put into their expectancy of me, and they said, well, we have so much in similar, perhaps that doesn't make us same. Equality is never going to be the same as sameness, because sameness doesn't exist. Otherwise we wouldn't be these individual souls having this experience. And that's the beauty of the human experience, and how we're ascending it. We're not ascending it in a linear fashion, okay, from this density to that density. It's a multiversal, multi-spectrum, multidimensional experience. And you, as a divine lover, each time you're shedding a new layer of yourself. And when you do, you bring a new layer to you. So instead of hoping for that relationship or that person to respond to your needs and the way you want them to be, or what you want to push out as an outcome, come back to you. What is your true spiritual growth trying to communicate with you through that experience? Because when someone is saying no, when you want to say yes, that's for a reason. They're not in the wrong. You're also not in the wrong. You see? Ego always thinks, duality. If this is right, this will be wrong. If this is wrong, this will be right. Always conflicting opposition. Unity is about, I'm right for me, they're right for them. How can we bridge? How can we bond without, fitting my version of the story into your version? No, they're independent stories, but they're interdependent. It's like a coalescent, beautiful, translucent experience that's seamless and just very flexible in its basic nature. So I function through freedom. When I sense someone else's projection towards me, I will simply affirm my truth back to them without judging them. Because when you see that they're not doing this to hurt you or, to want to overrule you or whatever. They're doing that because an aspect of them is not yet whole. But a lot of people are stubborn to admit that. I've worked with a lot of masculine energy in my years, and a lot of them were very stubborn. Because the majority says, nope, that's not me. I never had that. I never will. Good luck. Good luck with that. I mean, it's such a shame, because when you are exposed to such a beautiful energy of the heart of the divine lover, and you have everything out there in the open to invite you to do this inner integration, and still you're saying no because you think you're beyond that. just like Sanat was in this book. But he transcended that, and just like he did, I have in my heart the fullest trust for everyone to do this integration within themselves without any projection towards any relationship. Because if your desire to have a relationship or to have love within a partnership, not just what you experience within you, your own source, your light of the world that you are, then you're wanting still that out of that desperation to have it, which means that in your core is a belief that you don't have it. Therefore you want it, therefore you need it. So turn that back to you. What do I truly need? What does my inner child want? And a lot of people, instead of going into solitude to integrate, because that's when integration happens, they want to push forward in a relationship. And if we approach that in a different manner, a lot of the dramas that are happening in these relationships will not even happen. So conscious approach to love is worth every penny. Every investment is for you. Consider taking the Cosmic Beloved course, especially if you're struggling still in partnerships. If you feel like when I'm with myself it's all perfect, but when I'm within a relationship it's not. What's happening? I must be so awesome, but others are not. Still an illusion. No one is perfect. Perfection keeps you in a state of separation. You have to allow yourself to be not perfect, which means just like the teacher explained here to Sanat, he said, our innermost being is always perfect. That's the gift of the divine. But you have to allow yourself this experience and this shedding that comes in layers and the experimental wisdom that comes with it, rather than dogmatic knowledge, which is not just religious knowledge or New Age. It can be agnostic too, it doesn't matter. Any form of knowledge can be approached fanatically, if not integrated through the core of love. And there's always going to be people that will say, no, this system is right. No, that tarot is wrong. This is right. This is right. Don't you feel pressure when these things are approached that way? You must, because our hearts are feeling this sense of liberation when we're just sharing with each other. And I always feel that when I meet someone new, or it's a meeting of the return of souls you used to know many times years ago, the return of that love, and it's beautiful, and then someone ruins it by saying something, oh, you know, comparison, assumption, you know, fault, blame, blah. Again, pressure. Go back to you, go back to the union of who you are. And the mission of us as divine lovers is to bring that truth, that you cannot integrate without the core of divine love, which was misunderstood so much. Self-love is only an aspect of divine love. It's not yet the holistic truth of what divine love and true union is. And that's a union on multiversal level. And that other experience which I shared with you, with someone who had this toxic experience, and I simply shared with them, I said, look, it's going to happen until you stop judging the person who's acting toxic in toxic ways. And I said, we have to see the judgments we're still holding, like I had about cigarettes, you know, and the smoking, and I've shared with you. And when you do that, when you can turn any energy back to you, to the core of your light infusion, then you are truly becoming divine lover. And you are a gift to life. Don't forget that. But when you are blaming and finger pointing and thinking it's about the idea you have about the relationship itself, you're pushing. And you're not getting what it's about. You're not understanding and seeing the spiritual growth. And perhaps you're not ready yet, because when you are, it will be seen. A lot of times people tell me, when I share something from my heart, they say, well, I don't understand this. Well, no one said you have to. If you do, it's okay. If you don't, that's okay too. But I have to be with what I know for me, because that's authentic and that's sovereign for me. And sovereign beings will never superimpose our truth upon others. When others try to do that for us, we just humbly withdraw and we say, look, no. Because certain times boundaries are being crossed that way, because we can't just act like in any way we want with each other. That's not truly sovereign, and it's not in alignment with our soul's true love. So we're always going to enable the victim perpetrator mentality until we see that if something that is toxic persists in our life, we're still the enabler. Why? How? What's the experience here? And see the wounded child that somehow fears something, and for what reason, because courage is needed to transcend that. And like I've shared with that person, I said, look, I think there's fear present of what happens when you say no. You know, when you say no more this, you're still allowing it in a certain way. That's why the person treats you that way. And that means there must be judgment, and there's always saying, well, they're doing it this way and that way, so it must be them. They're toxic. I'm not the one. Doesn't matter. You have to see the illusion, which is the illusion that they're holding, which is they're being toxic because they themselves still live in separation and fear. So you're not helping when we're not helping when we're judging. We have to see through every illusion, through every crack and crevice. And I want to share also with you this story, which is about true love, divine union. It's I advise this book to every soul. It is so full of wisdom. I received so much integration through this book, which I thought, I already embodied this. Next level, next level. It's always like this. And what makes you divine lover is not this perfection or idealism. It's this. It's that you allow yourself to experience and constant communion with the self, constant expansion and constant releasing of that which you're not, which means embracing of every aspect, how to work with the shadow. It's also going to be explained in my book, The Mission of Volunteer Souls in the Grand Design, which I'm still working on, by the way. If you want to support the process, you can visit my donation pages. But for now, I wish to read you this. It's from chapter 14 in this book. It's about love and loving partnership. So in this story, in this lifetime, there was once Sanat was still having these experiences when he divided aspects of his being, which had different lives and different planetary systems. So he, in this story, I'm going to read in his personal story now. I knew I must find the right woman, the one who also had come specifically to unite with me. What I didn't know was if she would remember her role or if I would have to find her and awaken her. I decided to construct a rod, which was like this stick, right? which I could use to touch the women on the planet, which would not hurt them, but would speak specifically to the woman I was seeking. So he knew there's only one, right? Like a divine union. This rod was easily built within my complete laboratory. I then left through the golden door, going out again among the people. They gathered, blah, blah, blah. I won't read the whole story. So short story straight here. He asked them to help him to find a perfect partner, but there was no one there. So nothing happened. So once they said, well, we have one for you. And he excitedly went out among the people. They called me to come to the canal, and they're floating as I had was the loveliest woman I had ever seen. So he immediately fell in love in her. She was sleeping with her golden hair spread out over her fair, smooth skin. She reminded me of a sleeping princess, just waiting for a kiss to awaken her. I said to myself, why not? and bent over to kiss her. Something inside of me said, use the rod on her first. But I couldn't wait. He was just too into it. I needed to kiss her. I kissed her softly on the lips. She moved a little, but still didn't wake up. Again, I kissed her and then placed the rod upon her shoulder. She awakened suddenly, pulling away from me, saying, who are you and what are you doing to me? I realized this was not the woman I was seeking, or at least the rod did not indicate she was. I was very confused. This was the woman I loved. I was not going to give her up. I wanted it so badly. I realized that my emotions already had need of her, even if she was not the Eve I was seeking. I gently spoke to her. Don't be afraid. No one will harm you. Why have you come here? She looked at me and burst into tears, saying, I lost everyone in the plague. I jumped into the water to end my life, and I found myself carried by the current. I don't remember anything else. I gathered her in my arms, saying, I'll take care of you. Don't worry. I sought to calm her fears. I took her to my building, attempting to take her through the golden door, but it wouldn't open with her in my arms. I set her down gently, telling her I would be right back. I entered through the door into the laboratory, put on the trainer, and asked if this was the woman. It told me, no, she's not the one, and you must let her go. This is so important, the letting go. You can't be with her without confusing your purpose. I tore the trainer off my head, and he could just literally envision him so, angry. And he rushed back through the door, crying out, I don't care. I love her. I will have her. I will. Like a little child, right, inside. As I gathered her into my arms, the golden door disappeared, and in its place was a small cabin made out of logs. So that disappeared, a new vision. I brought her into the cabin, gently placing her on the bed, which was inside. As I looked at her, I knew I loved her more than I have ever loved before. I gazed at her beauty, stroking her gently. She seemed also to want my love, responding to my advances. I explored her body, appreciating every beautiful curve, the softness of her exciting me more and more. Throughout the day, we whispered our love to each other over and over, exploring each other's bodies, seemingly never getting enough, always needing more of each other. Finally, thoroughly exhausted, we fell asleep. I slept deeply until a dream awakened me. I dreamt I was falling down a well, going down, down, down. It was getting darker and darker. Above me, I heard the call, "Come back, come back." I kept trying to climb up the walls, but it was too steep and I just kept falling down deeper. I awoke shivering. I was alone. Where had she gone? I looked around and could not find her. Also, I was puzzled. We had gone to sleep within the little cabin, but I had awakened to find myself just outside the golden door. What had happened? Quickly, I went outside and asked where she had gone. Everyone seemed puzzled by the question, said they had not seen anyone. I was very confused and searched for her all day. Finally, I again entered the laboratory, put on the trainer, and asked, "Where is she?" I was told, "She is gone. She was an illusion, a part of your past. She never was real. This illusion needed to be released," but wait for it, "in order for you to fulfill your purpose on this planet. You must now release her in order to serve the plan." I asked, "What is wrong with having the one I love?" The trainer replied, "Nothing. It was the way you loved her." The point of today's video. It was from the will level. Your passion and your need for her really had nothing to do with true love. Do you recognize that? I was very angry, tearing the trainer off my head and running out of the building. I would have her. I would. No one could keep me from her. I ran and ran. I ran and ran. Like me, I run. I ran until I could run no more. I lay on the ground, completely exhausted, completely worn out. And this is usually when the biggest integration happens. I lay there for a long time, and gradually I realized what I had done. I had literally re-entered the land of need and will. The land where I had felt I must have this or that to complete my life. I remember long ago on the physical level when my needs and wants had literally controlled me. Although sometimes life had been wonderful, often I had found myself going in directions which confused and confined me. I had gradually learned not to need but to be directed by a realization of wholeness from within me. I had learned to love on a greater level, and this loving guidance had allowed me to grow more and more aware of my potential and feel more and more complete within that greater level of understanding. Indeed, the understanding that everyone mirrors wholeness to everyone else had been one of my greatest realizations. All at once, I knew I must let go of the need. I must let go of my need of her. As this point of awareness flooded through me, again I felt warmth within my heart, which had truly been cut off by my need. I felt whole. I knew I was complete. So you see, it happens in layers. He thought I was already complete, and then this strong infusion of love brought back up those aspects that still weren't in that unity. Suddenly, I heard the sound of gentle laughter and looked up. Wow! She stood before me, even more radiant than before. I heard the words, "Touch me with your rod." I did, and a golden flash came from it, literally exploding the golden light in every direction. She looked up at me saying, "I just arrived. I know you used a part of me before. You have been told it was an illusion. It was not an illusion because it was not complete." That's the trick. Let me now show you what complete love is. She led me back to the golden door. Gently she opened it and led me inside. We took our places together, which had been prepared for us within the plan. As we came together with our love, I felt unity and wholeness which spoke to me through the love we shared with each other. I whispered to her, "Forgive me, I needed you so much." She comforted me, saying, "Sometimes through our love and our commitments, a new level is born. It can only be born by releasing all old illusions or incomplete levels of understanding. Although you have integrated yourself into many levels within the oneness, this old remnant of need and want, this compulsion had to be released for you to fulfill your greater purpose as a planetary logos. Is it not wonderful that we were able to release it together? We have come together to aid this planet to create a new beginning for it and a greater understanding through our being together. Do you understand love more fully now?" I gazed into her eyes, saying, "Yes, I do. I know it is the ability to join with others who symbolize parts of myself, which is literally the oneness, and that's what I'm talking about. This allows all illusions to be released by being willing to allow a joining into what is already complete, by uniting what was chosen to come together to accomplish the Creator's plan. I am always discovering new ways to love and deeper meanings about love." We completed our mission by starting the new race of that planet. I discovered she also was in training to be a planetary logos. Thus, I had discovered a partner with similar purposes and a parallel path. You see, never like same, parallel. Counterparts. And We have never ceased to communicate. We have each other's love eternally. We had created a new beginning on every level for the planet, for ourselves, and for the plan. Always the plan, the divine plan, gives us the next step. All we have to do is surrender to this new beginning. So it is, and so it shall be. I want to also say that if we're fixed on certain, outcome and what we think this is about, we're going to miss out on what Spirit brought forth through us. So today I brought forth some cards as well, and it showed me like this past love and addiction a lot of people have. In truth, it's about spiritual growth. Whenever there's pain or you think it has to be something different, you have to turn back to you. Because the moment you try to refine it outside of you and you want to change something that's an occurrence in physical life with you and another, it's never going to happen. Just like this beautiful, beautiful story shares with all of us. Again, I would like to remind you of the Cosmic Beloved course, and I will have this book probably in its I'm in last developing stages this month, and the moment I'll finish it, I'm already going to go to my next book, which will be about the Tantric path, the cosmic orgasm, sacred illumined unions, and the knowledge that I hold in that level. And that knowledge has to be experiential. It has to be experimental as well, because every time it brings you a new layer. A lot of us have had these experiences, and that's why our memory is so strong, from other planes of being, from higher realities. But we also feel that it's important to experience that here on Earth, because this is our time. It's also time for earthly unions of, as above, so below. It is truly important. But a lot of times people say, I want it, I want it, I want it. The question is, are we ready for it? And that's what our souls are working with us to accomplish, to integrate. Thank you so much for joining me. It was my pleasure to bring you this video. I hope you liked it, and I hope it brought you some wisdom in your conscious partnership and how you emanate, radiate love into this planet as the fullness and wholeness of you. And to remember that wholeness is always expanding. So don't be proud of what you think you've already accomplished or integrated. There's always going to be something new. And it's okay, to be egoic sometimes. It's okay to see through that even more. So as always, with so much love, wisdom, and power, with great beauty and reverence for my sacred heart of the divine lover, so that may all divine lovers remember who they are, remember who we are at our core, and start walking our beautiful missions here on this planet in complete understanding of each other, rather than these egoic attachments that we might still hold. And understand that we show these points to ourselves, not that we would hurt one another, but to show the things we cannot see on our own. And that's what we're here to assist each other, always through love. Take care. I love you so much. I do.